Hello and welcome to tonight's LOL Esports Roundup, where we cover a bit of news, the LPL and LCK games that occurred earlier this morning, as well as the LCS games that occurred last night, as the LCS Week 1, Day 2 takes place at this moment. This is just how it's going to be with the LCS. So LCS games are covered the day after. And then we're going to preview those three regions' games for tomorrow. The news, 100 Thieves. So yesterday I mentioned that Nuke Duck was moved to sub. If you are not watching LCS, Nuke Duck has played yesterday and today, I believe, for 100 Thieves because Quid has visa issues. Nuke Duck last year with Excel in the LEC had a 3.9 KDA, 8.5 CS per minute, 62.1 KP. More known as like that filler player, plays weird stuff in mid, facilitator oriented at times despite the 62 KP, solid laner in the LEC, 397 gold per minute, which was 22.4% of Excel's gold, 504 damage, 24.7, so more facilitator oriented, not dealing a ton of damage. You'd like a secondary carry mid to be in the higher 20s, but below 25% is not wonderful. At 15 minutes, he's up 20 gold, down 1 CS, up 165 XP, had 12 solo kills in 47 games, played 18 champions. He did coach 100 Thieves towards the end of last split. We will see what the team decides to do when Quid returns. They did win yesterday. Nuke Duck is a good filler player, can play with veterans like Someday Closer, Double Lift, and probably get the team to a decent record if I'm being honest. Prediction. So I'm 50 and 15 when you take these into account. The LCS games that are going on right now, I do not have in that thing, in that record. I haven't even watched the LCS games that are occurring right now. I will start watching them after this video is uploaded. So, last night, C9 Golden Guardian. C9 would win. They're 15th in the power rankings. Blabber, 412, 32% of damage on Kindred. Berserker, 503 was MVP on Zeri. Gory, 003, 30% of damage in the loss on, I believe, an Ari. So, the game was close until it wasn't. Berserker going off on Zeri in a team fight kind of blew it open. And then he would clean up another team fight alongside Blabber, who on the Kindred did deal a good amount of damage. And the team won. From the mid to late game on. Blabber did int a bit in the early game, which is why I didn't make him MVP. I felt like that kind of set them back a bit. Fudge into Licorice was kind of irrelevant. Fudge did have some nice plays on the K'Sante in team fights towards the end, but at the same time, Licorice did get a good roam off on Ornn. So, C9 win. Berserker had a lot to do with that. Blabber as well. Eminez in mid. On Gragas, that just isn't his thing. Clearly, it didn't vibe. I am going to try and speed run this because games are going on. TL, TSM, TL win. Summit, 929, 33% of damage on a Kennen. Core JJ, 1216 on a Rakan, I think. Chime was on Rakan. I don't remember what Core was playing. Wild Turtle, 446, 36% damage on Zaya. So, TSM were behind early, and then, honestly, Summit just got involved in team fights on the Kennen, dealing a ton of damage, which is why he ended up with 33% and 9 kills and 9 assists. His KP was very high until the game got out of hand, and then it, still remained high, but was no longer perfect. Hanser did find opportunities on Malphite in a couple team fights. Chime on Rakan found opportunities as well, but TSM could not follow up. Insanity played a mid instead of Ruby. That was the first time TSM had a North American mid since Reginald, just as TSM are about to leave for the LPL, which I think is ironic. But Harry and I think Harry was in the post-game interview, but I didn't feel like Harry was the big difference maker. I really felt it was Summit, because Harry's playing into Insanity. Insanity is not LCS level in my opinion, so I mean, what are you gonna do? Pioshik and Boogie kind of a wash there. Pioshik was okay. Obviously he has a lot of work to do in the reputation department after how bad his spring was, but TL win with ease. Summit on the Kennen dealt a ton of damage in team fights, and that pretty much sums it up. Immortals and Dignitas. Immortals 1-0. Well, obviously, they only played one game. Tactical 403, 33% damage. Balulu 306, MVP on the Ari. Jensen 140, 32% damage in the loss on an Annie. So once again, Dignitas starting the year off the way they ended it. Jensen dealing the most damage in a loss. So, Balulu and Kenvi were attached at the hip. I almost made Kenvi MVP on his Sejuani. Going mid twice to get Balulu ahead, and then being active around the rift as well, securing objectives. It felt like Kenvi was on point with his ultis, like out of nowhere, catching Santorin out, who played a Rek'Sai. So we had 3 very lopsided games in these 3. I mean, really, really lopsided. Complete blowouts, disgusting blowouts, teams just not showing up, clearly still striking, but taking a paycheck, if that makes any sense. But their play made no sense, so hey, it's all equal, right? But Tactical and Treats did fine in their first series. We'll see if that continues when they actually have to play somebody decent. Rich left a lot to be desired. You'd like him to at least beat Solo in lane. He did not. Solo just playing a Scion into Rich's Jax and going even, and then having relevance in the mid to late game because he's Solo and he's on a tank. So that was really disappointing out of Rich in his debut for Dignitas. EG NRG. EG win in a perfect game. Jojo Pume 509, 35% damage, MVP on the Gragas. Armeo 506 on Viego. Palafox 040, 39% of damage on the Annie. And NRG's return to the LCS, just a complete disaster for NRG. Maybe they want to pretend that their debut, their re-entry didn't happen, and it will they will play today, and CLG played yesterday. Like, that's what they're going to have to do because it was disgusting. I'm not shocked. I guess I am. Jojo against Palafox, I thought Palafox would show up a bit more. I thought Contracts would show up a bit more. That mid-jungle duo, I feel like NRG can be competitive. I'm not a big Armeo fan, but they didn't. They simply did not. Revenge and Dokla in top lane's a wash, but then in bot lane, Unforgiven against FBI. Unforgiven had the advantage in the mid to late game. Laning phase was a bit rough. They were down quite a bit of CS. Unforgiven, Isla, and into FBI Ignar. But Jojo's just so big on the Gragas that in team fights, his casks and body slams and things like that. Belly bop, is that what it's called? I don't know. I'm not a caster. I don't pretend to know abilities' names. Regardless, you know what I'm trying to say here. He involved himself. He was impactful. He dealt a ton of damage on a Gragas mid, which we don't see often in terms of the dealing a ton of damage part. We see Gragas mid, but more of a facilitator. And he did facilitate, but he dealt a ton of damage as well. 100 Thieves and FlyQuest. 100 Thieves, 19th in the power rankings win. FlyQuest were 16th. This was nearly a perfect game if it wasn't for Fly taking the first Rift Herald. They did not get a turret, Drake, Baron, or kill. Someday 602, 34% of damage, led the way on Renekton. Doublelift 704 on Lucian. Vikla 030, 29% of damage on Jace in the loss. FlyQuest looked like absolute shit. Someday smoked Impact in top lane. Actually solo killed Spica in the early game. Invaded the jungle, solo killed him. It evaded a 2v1 later on. Like, Someday was just showing, hey, just so you know, I used to be one of the best LCS top laners. Now, obviously, I don't think this is going to keep up, but that's maybe he had a little bit of, a chip on his shoulder after 100 Thieves let him go for spring, and they replaced him with tenacity, and he wanted to show that, hey, I have a lot to offer here. Doublelift and Busio in the 2v2 crushed Prince and Vulcan. Multiple 2v2 kills, just diving them relentlessly, putting them in a hole. Prince did not deal really any damage in this game. It was a disaster for FlyQuest as 100 Thieves just rolled them in every which way. It's even like, watching it, it's like some days doing something in top lane, and then in the corner you see the 2v2 as 100 Thieves are dominating the 2v2. Like, it was simultaneously just crushing FlyQuest. It was disgusting. Fly need to forget about last night's game as well. LCK, T1, and Live Sandbox. Oh, by the way, my predictions were 7-3 on this board. 3-2 here, 4-1 here. So T1 Sandbox, T1 5th in the power rankings, 2-1 would win 2-0. Sandbox fell to 1-2, 25th in the power rankings. Faker 8-5-14, 28% of damage, was MVP on Azir. Carrier 3-2-24. I think he played Yumi both games. Guma played Nyla game 2. Teddy 11-5-4, 31% of damage, leading the way for Sandbox, as he was all they had going for themselves, really. Closer, well, that's a lie. I got too carried away. In the mid to late game, Teddy was the only thing keeping them alive. Closer did very well into Faker in the early game in game 1, actually putting Faker in quite a hole. That made me think to myself, should I make him MVP? But then I saw that he actually led the team in damage, and I said, well, if he was able to turn it around, and he did have impact in the mid to late game with shuffles and things of that nature, then, I mean, he ends up being MVP, right? He ended up, getting over the early game because he's played thousands of games and just did work, right? As far as Closer was concerned, he was not able to carry that over to the mid to late game. It was just non-existent. He just started getting picked off. Top lane, Birdall had some nice plays. I want to say he played Renekton. I don't remember the other champion he played, but regardless, he was able to evade Zeus and Owner and really make them work for a couple kills. Owner looked okay. Debated on making him MVP, but Willard did steal a Baron on Nocturne. So with that in mind, I guess I can't give it to him. Willard did have nice moments in this series as well. And Cal also. So, this is a 2-0, but Sandbox actually, all 5 players had something to take away from it as a positive, and then also quite a bit to take away as a negative. As far as T1's concerned, though, Zayas played tank, so he kind of just facilitated. Owner, facilitated. Faker, dealt a ton of damage on Azir, which kind of, the LCK meta in mid is getting kind of gross. We don't want to really, I'm going to mention it. It's not a good sign if this is happening in scrims. And then T1, T1's bot lane just did work. Guma on Nyla trying to have a bit of fun at times, getting aggressive and dying, but at the same time in the mid to late game in that game 2, it actually looked pretty good. Now against a good team, I mean, it might be a different story. D+ and Bro. So this is the prediction I got wrong. D+ fall to 2-1. They're 6th in the power rankings as Bro go to 1-2, winning 2-1. Morgan, 6-5-7, 32% of damage, led the way. Umpty was my MVP. Henna, 9-2-6 at 80 carry. Kana had the most damage for D+, going 1-6-8, 25%. Even spread of damage at 25% out of your top laner, not a good look. So, Rahel in game 1 looked very good. He played with a lot of confidence, actually dying under turret as he tried to get a kill, and he did get the kill, but died under turret diving. So, that aggression and confidence was really nice to see in game 1 as D+ absolutely crushed Bro. But in game 2 and 3, Bro found a way. Umpty went to top lane, put Kana in a hole, got Morgan ahead, and then Morgan was able to carry in team fights with damage. Henna found good opportunities as well. Ivory, I thought, was non-existent, which for the better. I mean, it's better to be non-existent than to be noticed for playing poorly, so there's that. I wasn't impressed, but at the same time, I didn't think he entered their game away, which is why they end up winning. Umpty, though, very active, getting Morgan ahead, like I said, which is why he was MVP. Like, he was all over the place. And maybe not dealing a ton of damage in game 3 on the Poppy, but was integral to the success in team fights, finding opportunities to get involved. and affect things for OK Bro. As far as the other players are concerned, Effort played instead of Palu. I guess Effort will probably continue playing. It's not a surprise. I was kind of puzzled by Henna Effort, only because I thought they were okay in the 2v2 in the first week. Not to say Palu might not be better than Effort. I think that's a possibility. I mean, I did say I didn't like Bro's moves, but regardless, the concerning part. The concern. So, game 3, Corki mid for Showmaker, Azir for Ivory. Corki Azir meta is a disgusting one. Hopefully that does not happen. Bro, love that meta. They love it. That's why in 3 games we see KP of 15 for their 80 carry in a win, because game 3 there were like no kills. There was nothing going on because it's a bro game. It's a bro game. Now, LPL, Rare Atom, LNG. LNG moved to 4-2, 8th in the power rankings, winning 2-0. Rare Atom fell to 2-3. Gala, 11-0, 13, 31% of damage. Scout was MVP, 10-1, 13. Assam, 2-9-6, 30% of damage. Scout on the Jason game 1 found kills in the dark, in the fog of war. He was all over the place. The Jace was just a menace. Scout was just the carry in game 1. Then in game 2, his Annie in the mid to late game in team fights was very impactful. I thought game 2 maybe not as much of a carry as game 1. I thought Tarzan looked very good, but at the same time, between the 2 games, I thought Scout was the best player. Zika in game 2 absolutely railed Zhaozhu, putting him in a massive hole in lane. I think he was on Gwen and Zhaozhu was on K'Sante. It was rather a bit of a diffy. And then as team fights started, Zika was just so much better than Zhaozhu. It was disgusting, but Zika's KP was pretty low, so I can't give him like a ton of credit for giving them the win, because they already got a lead themselves while he was playing on an island. So, bot lane, Gala hung, obviously dominating Asum and Feather. You know, it was just... It wasn't great out of Rare Atom. I really hope they don't play Mole over Strive. That's not going to solve their issues. I mean, I like that they got younger with Feather and Zhaozhu, but it's just this team's not getting much better. Against a good team like LNG, today was not their day. JDG, anyone's legend. JDG win. They're 6-1, first in the power rankings. Anyone's Legend now 1-5. It was a 2-1 win. So Anyone's Legend did find a way to get a win in game 1 after LGD got a win against JDG last week as well. So JDG throwing a bit in their first game of the series, which is just like JDG of last year. Knight 17, 10, 19, 27% of damage. Missing 2-3-32 is my MVP. ZDZ 7, 12, 6, 26% of damage. Had the most damage for Anyone's Legend. So Anyone's Legend in game 1 had a plan to punch JDG in the mouth. And they did. They got after it. They put JDG in a hole in gold. JDG finding objectives, which was the story of this series. JDG getting objectives. Anyone's Legend trying to find opportunities to get kills to get gold, and it backfired in games 2 and 3, but game 1 it worked well. Zhao Hao all over the place. Harder on the Nico was very, very good. One of the better Nico performances we've seen this year. ZDZ on the Gnar, I believe, was also, you know, making a difference in team fight. ZQE, kind of cleaning things up at times, but Missing was kind of doing his own thing, not inting his face off. Now, in game 2, Anyone's Legend actually were keeping up with JDG. JDG slowed the game down big time. I think only 6 kills in the first 20 minutes or something. It just really, really slowed it down. And there's a team fight around Drake where Missing Renata ultied, and that changed the complexion of that fight big time. Like, Anyone's Legend had a chance to win that team fight and possibly snowball that, right? So, ultied, saved the team fight, JDG win the team fight, JDG now starts snowballing, and that was the start of something for them. And then in game 3 at the level 1, JDG got, I forget who was on anyone's legend that was low. Maybe it was Zora. And Missing went out of his way to flash to get the kill, which you could say was a bit reckless, but at the same time, it was proving a point that he was going to get after it on the Rakan, and he certainly did. Very active. 369 as well looked very good at times in this series. You know, I honestly, like, game 1, they weren't ready for what anyone's legend had, and it was just doubting your opponent once more. You want JDG to clean this up. That was a thing that I had held against JDG at Worlds. This is a much better squad with much better veteran presence in Ruler and Knight, but at the same time, you can't be losing games to LGD and anyone's legend in the way in which they did. Game 3, very different than Game 2. I think there was like 35 kills at the same time. There was under 10 kills in Game 2. So just a very, very different game when it comes to the stat department, the entertainment department. BLG, second in the power ranking, 6-0 with 2-0. Thunder Talker, 1-5. Elk, 11-3-15, 29% of damage. Bin was MVP, 6-1-16. 1XN, 4-5-5, 28% of damage in the loss. I would tell you that I know how to pronounce the jungler's name, but the casters, see, I kind of 2 times it and this and that, and sometimes it's off, but I couldn't find an opportunity to hear them pronounce the name. And so with that in mind, that player kind of was there. Played Rek'Sai in game 2, Zhao Haugren, but he just was no match for Shun. Shun finding opportunities. Bin was very good on the Malphite and the Gragas. Playing tanks. Somebody has to on BLG if Shun is going to play carries. And Bin's starting to get better at them. And if Bin gets better at them, then he becomes a very, very big threat for best top in the world. If he also stops doing what he did the last few series before this one, where he ints his face off. UCal, non-existent. That's a problem. I thought UCal was going to be a lot better this year in summer compared to spring, and it just hasn't formulated. Hoya was just whatever. It really was 1XN and Yao Yao that were finding opportunities for Thunder Talk, if there were any at all. But the issue is Elk and On are just way better, so there's no chance in hell that they're going to win. And really, I mean, a 2-0 win. Bin was MVP because his tanks, he would just go into team fights on the Malphite and ruin the team fight, and all of a sudden BLG just clean up. Like, he found angles and flanks and really initiated well, which is not something we expect out of Bin on tanks. So it's a nice thing to see. That's it for the recap of the roundup. Now on to the sneak peek for Friday. Okay, LPL tomorrow morning, top Esports LGD, top 4th in the power rankings, 5-1, coming off of a win against FPX. LGD 0-6, coming off of a loss to Weibo. In spring, LGD actually beat top 2-0. Differences in the matchup, Wayward now playing instead of Qingtian, and then Envy plays for LGD tomorrow instead of LPC. So Meteor, Haichao, Jin Zhao in the win went 18-15-71, 1,322 DPM, 48% of the team's damage. Tien, Rookie, Mark went 9-24-34 in the loss, 1,003 DPM, so about 325 less, 320 less, and 42% of damage. So the jungle mid support trio for LGD was a bigger part of the win than top. I mean, bigger part in the series, right? Finding a way to almost have have 6% more damage share, 300 more damage per minute, a bit more integral to the success of LGD in that upset win. RNG, FPX, RNG 23rd in the power rankings, 2-3, lost to JDG last time they played. FPX 1-4, lost to Top Esports. RNG won 2-0 in spring. Only one matchup remains the same, as FPX now have Zhao Hu in top lane once more instead of Fearness. RNG have Tangwan in mid instead of Angel. Bot lane, RNG have LP and Lamau. So the only same matchup is the jungle. Wei went 5-7-11, 12% in the win. Hacker 2-4-9, 10% in the loss. So both facilitators not dying a lot. Actually, Wei dying more than Hacker despite winning 2-0. Nip and Ultra Prime, Ninja and Pajamas 24th in the power rankings, 3-3, coming off of a loss to OMG. Ultra Prime 3-2, coming off of a win against Thunder Talk. Last time they played in spring, Nip won 2-0. The only matchups that remain the same are top and ADC. Jungle mid duos have changed. Nip now have Shadow and Angel instead of Xiao Bao Dream. Ultra Prime have Forge instead of Ching in mid. And then at support, Ultra Prime have Sword Art instead of Baolan. So Invincible Photic in the win went 22-7-21, 1,292 DPM, 59% of the team's damage in the win. Harry Doggo went 2-15-5 in the loss, 895 DPM, so 400 DPM less, 51% of the team's damage. So Nip's top and 80 carry affecting team fights and dealing way more damage per minute and 10% more share. So being more important in team fights as well. LCK, Nongshim, Genji. Nongshim 1-1 coming off of a loss to Sandbox. Genji 3rd in the power rankings 3-0 coming off of a win against the Kwangdong Freaks. Genji won 2-0 in spring. Everybody remains the same. Outside of Nongshim possibly playing Quad instead of Fiesta. I don't know who's playing tomorrow. Pays in the win went 7-3-12, only 21% of the team's damage. Vital 11-3-5, 40% of Nongshim's damage. And you may say to yourself, but it's a 2-0, maybe the DPM's the same. No, the DPM was a bit of a diffy as well, about 100, I think it was over 100 more, maybe almost 200 for Vital. Pays playing more of played a Varus one game, more of a facilitator, as Vital played Zeri in both losses. KT DRX, KT 9th in the power rankings, 1-1, coming off of a loss to Genji. DRX 0-3, coming off of a loss to HLE. Last time they played, KT won 2-0. The only matchups that are the same are top and support. DRX had Juhan in that one. I don't know who's starting tomorrow in the jungle for them. Kiahu and Paddock at mid and 80 carry did not play in that series. So Keen Lahens went 6-4-29, 591 DPM, 32%. Rascal Barrel 111-6, 412, 31%. So we see similar damage share. That means that the other roles affected the Rift just as much as on both sides. So DRX now have changed that. So maybe the shares end up changing, whether for the better or the worse. LCS, so records obviously only include last night's games that I just went over, not the games going on right now. Immortals and TL both 1-0. Last time they played, TL would win. Pyoshik and Yeon are the only two players. Jungle 80 carry are the only roles that carry over. Immortals, Solo's now in top lane. Balulu is playing in mid, and then Treats at 80 carry support. So Pyoshik Yeon went 14-0-16, 923 DPM, 40%. Ken V Tactical in the loss, 271, 757, 39%. So similar impact on the team in terms of share, but about 170 DPM less. Golden Guardians FlyQuest. FlyQuest 16th in the power rankings, 0-1. Golden Guardians 1-0. Last time they played, Golden Guardians 1-3-2 in the playoffs. Gory and Vikla is a matchup I highlighted. The only roster change is that Balkan is now playing support for FlyQuest. Gory, 15-9, 48, 22% of damage in the win. Vikla, 21-19, 22, 31% of damage in the loss. He did deal quite a bit more DPM as well, as Vikla led the way for his team in that one. I know that he made some mistakes, if I recall correctly, in the latter stages of that series that caused them to lose. But he was dealing way more damage and playing way more aggressive than Prince was, as Prince kind of slowly died off in that one. Stixxay blew him out. So I compared the mids because both at least had positive KDAs. Impact's KDA was also trash, like 416 and something. EG Dignitas, EG 1-0, Dig 0-1. Last time they played, Dig would win. I think this was the one win they got to prevent them from having the worst record in history to start a split in the LCS. Jensen, 429, 32% of damage in the win. Jojo Pune, 241, 25% in the loss. That's the only matchup that remains the same, as now the top lane matchup is Revenge versus Rich instead of Someday versus Armut. Jungle, Armeo now for EG. AD Carry is Unforgiven for EG. And then the support matchup is Isla versus Diamond instead of Vulcan versus Biofrost. NRG or Vulcan versus Ignar, sorry. NRG 100 Thieves, NRG 0-1, 100 Thieves 19th in the power rankings, 1-0. They beat CLG in a tiebreaker to end spring. Matchups that remain the same is Jungle, that is it. Closer, 7-11, 15%. Contracts, 4-6-4, 19%. So Contracts was a bit more important to his team in the damage department than Closer was in the loss for Contracts. Matchup changes. So 100 Thieves have Someday in top lane. Mid lane, they have Nuke Duck or Quid. AD Carry, NRG have FBI. Support, NRG have Ignar. C9 TSM to finish us off. C9 15th in the power rankings, 1-0. TSM 0-1. Last time they played, C9 would win. Blabber, Sven, 6'5", 811 DPM, 28%. Boogie Chime, 1-12-12, 601, 28%. So both dealing 28% of their team's damage, but 1 KDA a lot worse. 112 compared to 6'5". Changes, TSM have Haunter in top lane, Insanity in mid, and then Wild Turtle at AD Carry. I think he played against Neo the last time, Berserker, so they didn't include that. In DPM, 200 more for Blabber Sven, so, I mean, more DPM, but the shares are the same, so the impact on team fights for the team relative to the team is the same. Deep breath. This video is coming out much later than I would like it to, but it's the reality we live in. So thank you for watching this video. If you liked it, like it, subscribe to the channel for daily League of Legends content. Follow me on Twitter, join the Discord, become a YouTube supporter, and I hope to see you again tomorrow.